happened before, yeah, maybe sometimes. We start from beginning now, Raja Garu? Okay.
That's because we've had a little break, Dr. Sharma. He's out of practice.
Yeah.
I think it might just be what was happening, Dr. Sharma, your audio. It might just be your internet speed because the audio was a bit breaking up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine for me here.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, each and everyone. Today, we, International Institute of Influencers, are very elated to welcome our special guest on our Global Express TV. Yes, Global Express TV is organizing a wonderful program, very esteemed program called 100 Top Global Influencers. So in this program, we invite world's top influencers who are influencing the world in 360 degrees. So we have such a wonderful guest today. And one more thing, I want to ask each and everyone a question that, do you like blessings? For sure, each and everyone, right? So everyone wants to have blessings in their life. This is the most precious gift each and everyone gets. So even we, International Institute of Influencers, our Global Express TV is not excluded in getting the blessings, my dear friends. We have our special guest, Ms. Graziella Thake, and she is nothing but a blessing. Why? Each and everyone may be asking me a question, why she is a blessing? Because her name itself is a blessing. So she is doing lots of empowered work in the world and creating lots of blessings to so many people. She is unique in her profession. She is unique in her personality. So most of the people might have heard about MBBS, doctor, engineer, and auditors, so many businessmen, CEOs, but she holds such a wonderful positions. She holds such a wonderful career that you will be definitely inspired today. My co-host, my special friend, founder and CEO of Brilliance, Miss Brenda Dempsey from UK, is going to introduce you our special guest, Miss Graziella Thake. And let's start the show. Miss Brenda, show is yours.
Okay. So it is such an honor and privilege, as always, to co-host this Global 100 Influencers on Global Express TV. And today I am thrilled. We are in 3 continents. We are in Australia, we're here in the UK, and we are in the UAE and Oman. So let's get right down to it, and let me just wax lyrical for a moment before we hear from the amazing Graziella Thake. So Graziella is a leader, and she is dynamic. She brings professionalism and a vast experience in her social impact for educational outcomes. She is a skilled facilitator, trainer, and speaker with experience in international sectors and local market development, leading and developing multidisciplinary teams. With over 3 decades of diverse experience, combined with a history of achievements in forensic corporate and sports psychology, she has a range of credible knowledge and skills in impact delivery, projects for social change across education, government departments, sport, and corporate. She is known as an asset to leadership. So, welcome, Graziella. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I don't know what to say after that fantastic introduction. It is such an honor to be here with both of you and to really embrace this vision that Dr. Sharma has. And I'm honoured to take the seat with both of you today. So I'm very well to be here. It's my birthday weekend. I turned 52 on Monday, and I thought, what better way than to start the weekend looking at where I've come all these years? Because listening to all of that and then seeing some of the, the information that Dr. Sharma sent me on myself, I was kind of sitting there thinking, wow, there's quite a lot that's gone under the bridge in this last 52 years.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful to look back to see how far we've come, and just use that as part of the vision to spur us on moving forward. So let's invite you to answer a few questions so that the world can get to know you just a little bit more. So we are the International Institute of Influencers. We're pioneers with a huge community of influencers. So our first question to you, Graziella, is how would you describe an influencer, and who is an influencer for you?
So Brenda, that's actually a really great question to sort of lay off, I suppose, that first kind of hit across the net, because when I listened to Dr. Sharma as we started today's interview, just even listening to her passion, her investment of time, I listened to her tenacity. She reeled off at least 12 different universities, MOUs. She talked about a vision. And to me, an influencer is someone like that, where you're standing in the corner of the room and maybe no one can quite see you just yet. You might put your hand up, or you might do something slightly different. And we all look towards you and think, that could be quite interesting. And the next moment you're doing something and we're looking at what you're doing and we're saying, what you were doing is not only interesting. So my greatest belief is that an influencer has impact because they bring meaning and relevance to a situation. They have courage. They influence us because they may be doing something that we haven't had the courage to do yet, or they may provide a way or a mechanism. And an influencer often will bring us with them. Now, there are positive influences and negative influences. So I'm leaning towards the positive, if that's okay right now, because influencers also harness an ability to bring us emotionally, and they will raise our intellect. They'll kind of get us thinking. They'll also get us feeling, and they'll get us acting differently. So influencers have impact. They have impact on us. Now, they could be negative. So to be a little bit sad. I really believe that we have to stand and just like that sort of essence influenced, and how we should be influenced, so that we're influenced in a positive way.
Wonderful response. And, I think we, in our discussion at the top of the show, we talked about like-minded people and our energies attract, and certainly the language that you've used there. I think we all echo that language and exactly the sentiments that you've made. Thank you for that. So Dr. Sharma, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda and Ms. Graziella. I don't know what to say. Yes, you have given a very good definition for influencers, courage. The etiquettes you have given was amazing, awesome. Thank you for inspiring us to be a real influencer in that way. Thank you so much. And coming to the very easy question, then Ms. Brenda. So the question is, you are into leadership. Not only just leadership. Leadership is something that can lead to innovations. Then only we can lead. So we have seen that you have related leadership and innovation in your life, in your workplace. Can you relate to us as well? Like, how can we create that balance between leadership and innovation?
Absolutely. So I guess you set me a bit of a task there to sort of inspire and teach and educate. And that's my core. It's my very essence. So as I said to you, I sort of had a very humble birth. I was born in Mumbai, India. I'm a child of, two diplomats who are also educators. My father had worked beside Mother Teresa. And if I look at leadership and innovation, I guess, we have these great words that we coin in any part of an era. It's like, we have this disruptive phrase that we use at the moment, so positive disruption, whereas it was called change agency 10 years ago. So we're always coming up with terms. And the reason I think there's a happy marriage between leadership and innovation is just like we talk about that translation of the word influence. And I guess it's unpacking leadership and what it means to me personally and what it means to the Optimization Hub, which is the organization I lead, and what it means in my UN ICPG role, and what it means to be a trustee for me to World Legends. All of it to me comes with the task of embrace the new. And innovation to me is about embracing the new. And I believe that leadership, and if we really talk about servant leadership, and I know I've been frustrated a couple of times when I've given MBA lectures, and I have people asking me, how do we learn about servant leadership from you? And I say, well, you shouldn't be talking to me. You should be talking to the people that I work with to get them to talk to you about what this feels like for them and what the relationship I have with them may enable them to do. Because I think, innovation in a space is not about what I can do. It's what I may be able to enable others to do because I can facilitate that. And as a servant leader, I'm there to enable those around me to find passages or ways to be able to turn the nuggets and bolts of ideas that they have into actual eventual passages of innovation that I can break some walls or barriers down so that they can lead. So I think that leadership and innovation go hand in hand, because we have a responsibility if we consider leadership. And I do believe that leadership is available to us all. We need to lead ourselves well. We need to lead each other well. We're all influencers in varying degrees. One person will always affect 5 people, regardless of whether they frown, smile, disintegrate a room or build a room. So we have to think about innovation as part of the task of leadership in this era. And in this era, if we're truly going to economically change, socially change, and we're going to have social impact, we need to make way and room for change. And change brings innovation. We need to be responsible for being open and collaborative. And Gen Z needs us to create passages and ways of being embraced. So, leadership and innovation are synonymous, because change is a constant and innovation is part of change.
Wonderful, Ms. Graziella. What you said, I really like it. The healthy married relationship between leadership and innovation can finally lead to change makers. Wonderful. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. How about you, Ms. Brenda?
Thank you very much. I love that, and leadership. There's a phrase, being a beacon of light, and leaderships can shed some light on dark paths, and then others can see and follow. But I do think it's not about telling, enabling is the exact word. I love that very much. That really resonated with my own philosophy. So thank you very much for sharing yours. So I want to take it a little bit into your sports psychology. So as a sports psychologist, it's a 2-part question. So one, what are the challenges that the people you work with face? But more importantly, how do you face and overcome the challenges that brings for you?
That's a really good question. And can I just come back to that? Because I know that we were talking, I began my career in forensics, and I know you touched on something there, and you said, we face the most difficult situations. And, when I started my career, and I fell in love with psychology. So I'm also Maltese of origin. So, Edward de Bono, in his great wisdom over the years, he's also Maltese. And when he was alive, would often, he was always inviting me to work with him to see what he was doing. And I had this calling, not just around psychology, his humble beginnings were, as a medical doctor. And I was looking at medicine. I looked at so many other passages. And I think when you look at psychology and you look at the passage of sports psychology and you look at the passage of change management, forensics led me into a career that broke open the doors and windows of how we can all fall into critical situations. I was faced in forensics with, my very first client being my age and being there for life. And, I think about the critical situations of sport. I think about the critical situations of corporations. And what I want to do is just humanify all of it, because in forensic aspect of the human being, I can't walk in another person's footsteps. I can't walk inside their skin. I need to respect them for who they are. And no matter how much we think we know, no matter how many qualifications we have an ability and a capability to walk into a room and to teach, to educate, to enable, to train. But we're also there to learn. So as much as we're working with people and they're our clients, we're also there to be the student of the client. We need to learn and respect what they bring to us. And so when you ask me that question about sport, and, I have a love relationship with sport, and I utilize sport even in my forensics in the earlier days. I mean, I'm 52 on Monday, and when I began my career, at 16, I played football, but I had, I couldn't go anywhere with it. But when you're 16, 17, now you can get a scholarship, you can go to university, you can do things with it. I think the most difficult situations in sport are the most difficult situations in forensics and the most difficult situations in change. Now, when you face, the powerlessness that your client is going through, and not taking it on personally, which I think is something in my earlier training in forensics I learned very thoroughly. And it's part of our training at the Optimization Hub for our master trainers that we have globally. And I'm very proud to say, we're representative of so many different diverse cultures. And I think when I think about the situations of sport that resonate and that are difficult, and what I feel I'm challenged by two or three different scenarios. One is that in our society, for our young sports people, quite often they professionalize very young. They miss out on many, many rites of passage. And those rites of passage mean they grow quite quickly. We have expectations very early of them, and pressures are insurmountable. And I recall situations where I'm faced with, literally thousands in an audience, or, 20 elite players in an audience, and they're quite young, and they look at me, and I'll say to them, what's the toughest thing that you're facing? And they'll say, we need to learn how to love the haters. I think if I can draw a parallel there, I believe that that's the same that's true of young people who are faced with choices in gangs or environments that are really tough, that they are trying to survive this need to be liked and loved. And I believe that's something we all have to manage. And I think we're not equipped. Our education system is archaic. It doesn't teach us how to get on with life. It doesn't give us the equipment that we require. That's why the Optimization Hub exists. That's why our programs are popular and in 16 different countries. That's why we've partnered with Gus, and why we've partnered with, across the continent of Africa, several different, companies that are dealing with this across that continent in education. I think the importance of it, and, even faced with some of our finest and best, across the US who've served, say the same thing. They look at me and they say, "You are so right." And I say, well, yes, we've got to replace, and we make a promise at the Optimization Hub that in 9 hours, we can change graphically, both that slope of mental health decline, but also equip your mental agility so that you're not facing us with a question, how do we love the haters? You actually know who you are, your resilience skills, your goal setting, your motivation, your interpersonal, your autonomy, your influence. And so the toughest situations that we will always face is where there's such isolation. And the other part of that situation now is the influence of the social fabric that we have around social media. And so the combat that we have is isolation, change, the difficulty of social acceptance. And this is hitting Gen Z left, right, and center. And the other thing is that we don't control our reputations anymore. You or I are subject to someone's opinion, and someone's opinion, especially for a sports person, can go viral very quickly. And that kind of social pressure can destabilize a very young person who doesn't have their identity intact, who doesn't have the social fabric, the social network, who hasn't got a problem-solving, paradigm on board, who perhaps hasn't got that influence and autonomy. There might be, 16, 17 in front of us. They might be 23, but realistically, they're probably still socially sitting at 12 or 13, not having had the exposure you or I have had. Not saying they're not mature, but not that kind of exposure to resilience, diversity. And so that creates an even bigger problem for sport. And so this impact that I'm talking about is critical. We're breaking our young people. We're breaking them out of university, and we're breaking them once they come out. We're breaking them in sport. We're breaking them when they come into work, because they are exposed to that gaslighting that we talk about quite often and we hear about. They're exposed to somebody else controlling their social footprint, their social identity. They can have their social identity robbed. And the powerlessness they go through, the isolation, the grief they go through that loss of context. It can be a coach. It can be a parent of another player. It can be a group of young people who decide that they're going to hate them because they're winning. And suddenly the social construct of just being liked and loved is falling apart. And we are not reporting the amount of youth suicides there are. And the volume is increasing.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, that's such a somber note, but there was lots of gems in there that you mentioned. And the one that really hits home to me, and I reflect 100%, is that we cannot make a judgment on anyone unless we're walking in their shoes, and we do not walk in other people's shoes. And for me, that is what I remind myself of, that when I find my mind wandering into negativity. So I think that's a great message. I also think what you said about the education system, it's archaic, it's broken, we're still sitting children in rows in classes 200 years on. This is a different society. We have changed so much. There's better ways for children or young people, adults as well, to learn about who they are. And that just opened that whole door into emotional intelligence. Who are you? What are your values? What do you stand for? And when you actually go on I call it the inner journey, that's where you find the power and the strength and the resilience to be able to ignore and let it, run off you, those insults. And for me, I loved what you said about we no longer can control our reputation, And I think that's true. And as an educator myself, I saw that with lots of teenagers with social media and the devastation it causes. You know, as you said, suicide, self-harm, all of that. So you're right. We have a duty to make sure we do not break our young people, but build them. Thank you for that. That was so insightful. Thank you so much.
I would just add to that too. I think we've been really irresponsible in not planning and preparing for professionalization. I think we can learn in hindsight now. We monetized, but we didn't really professionalize sport. So we haven't really educated our coaches as educators and teachers. So they're not equipped for what they need to do with these young people now. And unfortunately, they can also be the principal cause of some of that mental health decline if they don't have the tools on board, because you can actually be accredited as a coach within 3 days for some sports.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Graziella. Thank you so much for building the equipment of resiliency, which is lacking in education system right now. Thank you for making the people, making the students to feel that I didn't lose gold, but I won silver. So let them not lose the hope. And I'm sure the sports is something that builds that resilience. That's why every parent, as soon as the baby is born, after 3 months, 4 months, they don't take them to the schools. They take them to cycle ride so that they can fall and get up and learn the values of resiliency, come back, bounce back. So amazing. Thank you so much, Ms. Graziella. Thank you so much. And let me ask you something a bit different here. Like you are into sports psychology, you are into forensic psychologist, you're completely a psychologist, and you're dealing with leadership, innovation, coaching, lots of business inside. So how do you think, and what do you think, and why do you think, you know, a business, especially those ladies, women here, they should have, what are the etiquettes should they follow in business? Are there etiquettes or any standards that will really help them to come up in this path?
So I need to put my hand up and say I'm no longer a registered psychologist. So I gave up my registration about 7 years ago, because I decided that, so I had continued that registration. And then when I went into leadership as well, so it's a really good question to kind of collide with that. Having started with forensics, I went from forensics into corporate psychology. So I came out of forensics actually, having cervical cancer, and I had to go through a bit of a journey of kind of looking at myself and what that impact was and making changes. And then I went back in and I quite quickly started getting grabbed to do work in corporate. And I ended up working with 26 multinationals, and I did a couple of global mergers, and I also did some banking mergers and got very heavily involved in finance, but sport was always there as well. So I was kind of working with sport, corporations, and in a multinational framework, I was exposed a lot to diversity and inclusion. And so in those days, and I'm talking 20 years ago, we were being faced with, why have we got, no women on boards? Why have we got a lack of women in certain fields? And this big question, and I'd keep on saying, well, actually, it's because, when we look at the university system, and we perhaps look at how many young women are going into particular careers where they can advance, we're not actually embracing it at the education level. So again, it comes back to education. So I think if we're examining your question, if I've heard it correctly, is there any etiquette around female leadership or becoming a leader? And, within what I do at the Optimization Hub, and, there's a number of different things that have come my way over the years, IWD awards, Woman of the Year awards, coming out in transformational leaders, doing various things, but you don't go seeking that. I think that if we look at the question instead of not just as a female leader, but just as a leader, I think it's one of the things I talk about as non-apologetic leadership is that your convictions, your values, don't shy away from those. It's very difficult, and I need to sort of say this too. There is a difference in the passage for that gender journey that I've been through the eras that I've been through, and I'm really working hard to ensure that that's not the case for the young women now. Indeed, even for the young men or for different cultures. We have a leadership team that's definitely 50-50. It's mostly a female-led education and health technology team. We have 18 different programs, 3 vertical markets. We work with universities, we work with sports, we work with corporations. What I say to the women around me and what I say to the men around me isn't different. It's the same. It's, the courage to lead. I don't apologize for having to stand for my convictions. I say, look, this is what I really believe in, and I'm finding this difficult. Please explain to me why this is happening. If my voice as a female makes that any different, then I would raise the question, why is that different? I remember 20 years ago when I first started a business and I was told, as a woman, you're going to be a riskier kind of person to back. And then when I went through the passage of having to raise my children on my own, having lost their dad, I kind of, again, had someone say to me, well, we can't really, bank you because you're a mum on your own, you've got dependents and you're leading a business. And I remember looking at them and saying, that should make you want to back me even more because I'm doing all these things really successfully. So I kind of proved them wrong because I have 12 roles now. I'm, a trustee on 100 World Rugby Legends. I mentor women internationally. I'm the UN, ICPG General Secretary to Australia. I kind of do various things across Pan-African development. I've innovated and led a company. I've written a series of programs. I mentor the women around me. I don't look at ticking that list off. I just do the doing. And I think to any leader, I just say, look, lead well with conviction. Don't apologize for things that you're doing or that you're enabling. And for women, the only thing I would say is help each other. Don't allow anyone in the background to determine your philosophy of how you help other women. Because I still don't believe, and I had this conversation actually with a couple of global leaders today in a group of women, and again with a friend, that I still don't think that, equity and equality is there. I still believe that somehow we're kidding ourselves. We still haven't embraced cultures well enough. We still haven't embraced difference well enough. We still don't embrace each other well enough. I still think that somewhere in the background, if you're too loud, you're too this or you're too that, and it's often being defined by someone in the background who's gaslighting a situation, and the casualty is often either a gender or a culture. And I think we need to become responsible as leaders. So the etiquette that I'd like to impart today is let's get real and say, what does this look like? And is someone else pulling the strings? Or are we really in the room supporting each other?
Wonderful, Ms. Graziella. That's what every successful woman, behind every successful woman, we have a tribe of successful, another empowered women. Yes, exactly. And I love the word which you said, philosophy. Like, don't let anyone to come and determine your philosophy. Absolutely right. Thank you so much, Ms. Graziella. It's wonderful. And I'm also taking this from you. I will never let anyone to determine or decide about my philosophy. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Over to you, Ms. Brenda. Ms. Brenda, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, there was a noise in my background. Sorry. I'm just taking so much away today. I could listen to you forever, Graziella. Your absolute humbleness, your experience, everything is just fantastic. And I hope the audience and those watching or listening are feeling that too, because I certainly am feeling it. I've got a question for you. We talk about visions, dreams, goals. How do you describe the differences between dreams and goals, or are they one of the same?
This is a good one for me. So I love Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream." It just kind of like, even when I say those words and I think of him, there's the emotion inside of me. I remember my father saying to me when he worked beside Mother Teresa, he said that, she said, "Georgia, wear some gloves." And he said, "No, I believe, like you believe, that I'm not going to contract anything." And so I think when you think about dreams and you think about goals, I think that you have to quieten your mind. And this is one of my favorites, is that this is, you need to harness your mind and your thoughts and not let them run away. We have 30 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And if you're a leader to any degree and you have a vision, you have to learn to listen to your intuition. And your intuition is your dream. Your intuition is your goal as well. I think, in this era of goal setting and making things happen, we do need a passage in a good 90-day action plan. And my team, if they're listening, kind of know that I'm a penchant for 90-day action plans, and everything's run. Our learning management system is run off a series of value-laden goals that we achieve. But I do believe that you have to start with I know the vision. I know where I want to be. I don't necessarily know how to get there. I can't tell you that at 14, when I said, I want to go out and make a difference in the world, I knew exactly what that was. But I can tell you that when I was 19 and I sat down and said, I better start backwards planning, I laid out my vision and then I dreamed up what I wanted it to feel like and look like. And I can tell you that today I achieved all of that. So I had to start with something that I felt inside my being. And I really honestly did. That I've all my life had a drive to do what I'm doing now. Otherwise, I wouldn't work the crazy hours I do. And those who know me well know that I will work harder than my team so that I'm serving a purpose and a reason and a why. And through COVID, it really was pulled out of all of us to do that. And I think through COVID, we all had to have a vision at the other end. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here now. We had to say, whatever it is, we're getting to here. We're going to be with our families. We're going to be doing things. We don't know how, but we know that. And I think that's where vision collides with a pattern of goals. And somehow circumstances will always marry vision and enable a goal. So does that make sense?
Wonderful.
Absolutely. So based on what you've said, and I would say, Dr. Sharma, and I hope you don't mind, Dr. Sharma, the work that I'm doing now has been born out of a lockdown, and the same with Dr. Sharma. But I'm interested in, you talked about as a 14-year-old and as a 19-year-old, as an almost 52-year-old, what's the dream now? What's that vision now?
I don't, to be really honest, okay, I say this to my two wonderful daughters who I just adore. One of them's at university in the US and the other one is a student here. And, they've both had to really cope with me being away this year because it was a big commitment for me to go out and see our client base. So I've done that. I've traveled through, 8 different countries and done various things. And I say to them, and I'll say it to you, and I say it to everyone, I still feel, I remember at 14, I won a raffle ticket at an event, and it was to go to a stress management seminar, right? And my parents, to their absolute, wisdom, I said, I'm not going to use this. What am I going to use? They said, no, you should go. So I went, and there was a room full of men, businessmen, learning how to manage their stress. And I went in there going, what on earth am I doing here for 2 days? I haven't been stressed. Anyway, so I was real and I was honest. And, it took a lot of courage to kind of just be me in this. And I just did. And I did all the exercises and I did everything we were doing. And I jumped off trees and I did all sorts of other stuff. And they said to me at the end, thank you for your being here, because we all realized we're still 14 inside. And everything you honestly relayed, we still feel. And I can tell you now that when I sit in an audience, or I'm, like I've got a team of rugby players, or I've got an audience of 16,000, which we just had in Chennai, or wherever I am, or I'm standing with people, I'll always say to them, I can articulate and I can talk to something and I have that knowledge, but inside of me, I'm still that 14-year-old. Nothing of that has gone. I don't carry, I may be able to stand there with royalty. I may be able to stand with etiquette. I do know how to work those passages, but I'm honest and real in exactly the same way. I haven't lost that piece of me. And I'm still 14 inside. I say that to my kids. I say, look, you're teaching me so much. I still feel like I'm 14 inside. I still have a vision. I still don't feel like I've realized entirely that vision I held at 14. I think it's matured. I think I've achieved lots of things. I haven't set out to achieve those things. I've just set out to achieve the vision. I wanted to have impact on the world in a positive way. I wanted to deliver a change to the education system. I wanted to serve sport in a better way. I wanted to serve leadership in a better way. I wanted to serve university students transitioning into workforces in a better way. I believe I'm still doing that and I'm still bettering it. The vision for me is that I just keep saying yes to opportunities. I keep being honest and real. I keep the courage that I've always had. I don't give up on myself and I don't give up on anything around me, because there are going to be challenges and there are times I just think I've had enough. This is ridiculous. What am I doing? It's just, and there are times when you're faced with, you've put so much in and your team has put so much in and people just discredit and then they come back to you and they always come back and say, you guys were right. We need more of this. So I think for me, I haven't changed. There isn't any difference. There's probably more of a desire for sleep.
I think you're right. I think we all need to have our inner child out more. I talk about that. You say honest and real, and I say raw and real. And with that, let's find out what Dr. Sharma says. I think she's got another question for you. Oh, she's frozen. With that lovely smile. Dr. Sharma, are you there?
So I think she's typed something out to me. She said to me, I think she is frozen, but she said, what do I love most about myself?
Oh, yes, So
I can pick that up if you want me to.
Yes,
So I guess I think the thing that I think is most important is to keep the self-respect. So, the thing that I consistently come back to, and it's difficult sometimes because leadership is a lonely journey at times, and you have to surround yourself with people that will be your pillars of strength. They all have demands on them as well, and it's always a counterbalance. But I think if you have the right people around you, the one thing you have to always do, and the one thing I like about myself, is that I'm real. It's also my one vulnerability, because it means that, I'm open enough that I'm at risk of someone coming in on the attack. So, but I've learned to be able to not personalize that. And I think that's what I like, is that I'm able to just say, well, it's okay, it's me. And I don't need to change that for anybody. I'm not here to do anything bad. I'm here to do good things. If I don't, come across exactly the right way you expect or need right now, how can we work that out so that we can achieve the outcome we've got in the room, which is to help the students, to help the athletes, to help the leadership population. So I think that's the piece I respect about myself most.
And I think you touched on what you said there was the lesson that you were talking about to give to our young people today. You know, it is about knowing yourself. It is about those values and being true to yourself. You know, sometimes the word authenticity is branded about, and like that, terms and words change. Some are in favour, and then a year or two later, they've swapped over. But they mean, more or less, mean the same. But being raw and real and being open and vulnerable are great strengths of great leadership. But those qualities take great courage to be open to, like you already talked about, our reputation. You talk about, like, I know I've been guilty of saying, and maybe you have to, I've taken, like, so I'm 64. I'm like, I've taken 64 years to build my reputation. I'm not going to let it down out. But someone else could, and I have got no control over that. And that's all because of the world that we live in today, you know. But I think going back to the self-awareness, being aware of what it is. And if you can't love yourself, you can't love others. And servant leaders know that. And that's given me goosebumps. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think I'll give you one final question. I don't know what's happened to Dr. Shama.
She's got two questions there. She sent in. So she's on WhatsApp. I think she's trying to get back through onto there.
Okay, she will be.
She was talking about how to build teams and organizations, or positive teams and organizations. And I think what you just said kind of leads into that too. You know, that the reputation that we extend to others, you know, that team, that organization, they take on the reputation of the leader, or they take on the reputation of the brand. And I think if I pick on what you've just said, because that was such a good point, is to build a positive team or a positive organization, what we need most, or what we need to encourage most, is really going to be that authenticity. And if we can be authentic and real, and we also can impart, you know, we have to build trust with our team. We have to build our team, but it's also a selection of the right people. I don't think, you know, that we can also kind of say we have to give responsibility to our team to be able to work together. And I think the importance of this is that if we're going to build positive organisations, we have to start with a change in education. We have to start with transitions from universities, hence our university transition program that we have, LifeTrack. And LifeTrack has been very much about that, is the positive transition from university to careers, but being able to maintain the assets that you can develop there, but coming on with your best assets. So you're not coming into situations that can then, you know, bend you out of shape. And that you're not bringing that positivity, and that brings positivity to the organisation as well. Dr. Shama's back in there.
Yeah, thank you for being back. And I think we talked about walking a mile in other people's footsteps, and you talked about thinking and being and doing, and you know, and I'm sure it reflects your own thoughts and philosophy. Like, we have to be the role models. You know, I never ask anyone to do anything that I'm not prepared to do myself. And that could be sweeping the floor, making the tea, whatever it is. Leaders will do whatever's necessary for the team and working together. One of my values that's a massive driver for me in my life, in my working life, my personal life, is collaboration. It's that team effort. You know, and it's allowing people to be proactive. It's enabling is the word I should have used there, enabling others to be their brilliant self and bring out and let them shine. Leaders don't need to be the one that's shining, that's pulling, it's in the driving seat. I think great teams, we all work to our strengths, and at times someone else is driving a project and we're sitting being taken along, and in other times we're in the driving seat. But teams for me is massive, and collaboration for me is what underpins them.
Wonderful. Actually, I wanted to tell that we love Graziella for her honesty. What I have noticed everything. So what Graziella loves about her?
Well, we've answered that question, Dr. Sharma. Do you want her to say it again?
No. I just wanted to know in one line.
Okay.
I think that was the thing I sort of said, it's really that what I like most about myself, what I respect most about myself is my ability to have the courage to keep being me. And I think that's something I can't change. I would love to be someone who could hide behind certain airs and graces. I can't play games. I'm incapable.
I think this is the main identity of a great human being, very kind human being, Ms. Graziella. I think that. So, over to you, Ms. Brenda. Over to you.
So, I think, is this the final question now, Dr. Sharma?
Oh, final question. Okay, yes.
Okay. So, III, International Institute of Influences, is all about the humanization of education and happiness. And we've touched on lots of things. But what's your secret recipe to a happy life?
Well, there was one question that that Dr. Sharma put into the chat, which was around an amazing experience as an athlete coach or working with athletes.
Okay.
And I think it touches or it ties back into this particular question as well. Because I think when you look at sport, which is an amazing reflection of society, and you look at risk-taking, and Dr. Sharma touched on this before, that parents will get their children to go out and play in a playground and experiment with things and try things out. And that's how we learn a little bit of resilience, try something out and play a little bit. And I believe that, we come into the world as these adventurous souls. And when I was younger, I learned German, and German's a language I still really love. And Unternehmungslustige is the word for adventurous. And I believe being adventurous allows us to find happiness. And I think true adventure comes from the moment that you allow your mind to do just the one thing that we've touched on when we talked about goals and vision, is to vision. And I think sometimes we need a space to do that. And it's a very noisy world, and technology's sped us up, and we're very overstimulated. And I believe that true happiness comes from reducing the overstimulation, letting go of the games, being who you are in a moment and connecting with everything around you, and having a vision. And just, you may not know where that goes to. You may just get involved in looking at things and really liking what's around you, and just getting into the habit of having that 5 or 10 minutes. In some cultures, it's meditation. In other cultures, it's visualization. To me, it's a moment to build awareness of self. And from there, I believe happiness comes, because your connection to yourself is where that begins. Your central nervous system, knowing where your body is, knowing who you are in that moment, and then considering for yourself your relationship to everything around you. I believe that what's happened with technology and automation has meant that we've become a slave to timelines and to automation. And quite often I say to athletes, and this is where it ties back, I'll say, drop your smartphone, drop your calendar. Now tell me what you're doing next week. Tell me how you're determining each day. And if you haven't got an answer, then it means you've become a slave to something outside of yourself. And if you're a slave to something outside of yourself and you're not connecting with that, and maybe you don't want the responsibility to connect with that, you're actually happy not having responsibility, but at some point that something outside of yourself will control you, and then you're not going to be happy, because external control of you doesn't necessarily give you the freedom, and freedom will give you happiness. So I think discipline gives you freedom. I think the discipline to spend time with yourself will give you happiness. So discipline will provide you with happiness. but the right kinds of disciplines. And I think that comes from quietly learning yourself and trusting yourself. And that's very much why OHUB exists, is that passage of learning that's very necessary. And the tools we provide will clear you out, enable you, and get you back to those 7 stages of growth. And that comes up only when you begin with that first self-identity and self-connection.
Wonderful, wonderful, Ms. Graziella. What do you say, Ms. Brenda? We felt so contented today, that lots of satisfaction that we got a great human being who has influenced, and you have triggered, actually, I can say, you have triggered the values and ethics and being you, what you are, discipline that can bring happiness in our life. Even I will follow that again. Self-awareness, as you said, it brings happiness, especially being what we are and disciplined positively all the time. Thank you so much, Ms. Graziella. It's wonderful talking to you today. I missed some part, but I'm grateful to Ms. Brenda for taking over due to these technological disturbances. But we are highly elated. I'm sure lots of our learners might have inspired today with your simplicity, generosity, honesty, and abilities. Over to you, Ms. Brenda.
Well, I echo everything. It's been, I feel so honoured and humbled being here listening to someone with great humility herself, and all your lessons. And we're coaches, we're educators, and I can just see that whole spiral as you are evolving and elevating and having that ripple effect with every person's life that you touch. And I feel very moved today listening to you. And I thank you very much for saying yes to Dr. Sharma and allowing us to ask you these very personal and insightful questions. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graziella, for accepting our invitation and joining us. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. Thank you. She's sick, actually. She's traveled and she's tired, but still she has spent her time to join us today. I don't have words. Thank you so much, Ms. Brenda. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. It's been an honor.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.